Howdy everybody, this is Omar, your Audio Amigo, back with another Audio Amigo review for y'all. There are many cable brands that make the leap from cables to making IEMs or headphones, and today's subject is no exception. This is the FAAEAL Tulip. It's a single DD set from cable brand FiiO, priced at 110 US dollars. This is going head to head with some of the heaviest hitters in the $100-ish single DD price segment. So does this do enough to stand out? Well, that's what we're going to find out today. First, a quick disclaimer. These were sent to me by FiiO themselves for review. I am not being paid for this review, but because I could turn around and sell these if I wanted to, I've gone ahead and activated the paid promotion feature here on YouTube. I do these disclaimers because I believe in full transparency when there's potential bias besides my own personal taste at play. Thank you so much to FiiO for sending me these out, and thank you to all of you watching for your continued support. So as far as unboxing experience goes, the small box of the Tulip honestly feels pretty premium. Once you get inside, everything is contained in this rather tall little leather carry case. Inside you will find the IEMs and the cable in sort of separate compartments. Don't worry, those compartments are fully removable, so you have access to the entire space on the inside for whatever you might want to do. The top compartment actually folds down and has space for 6 sets of ear tips. These are the included tips. You get sort of solid core with like a narrow bore and solid core with a slightly wider bore, and then you get an extra set of the mediums down there that come on the IEMs themselves. There's also a little pouch up here for putting extra things. I like the tip storage. It's something that you don't see in cases at this price point pretty well. The top is soft touch. The leather feels nice quality. Zipper can get stuck, but it's generally pretty solid. Crush resistance is pretty good. Overall, while this isn't pocketable, it's a pretty nice accessories case. It's a great way to carry gear around in a backpack or in a suitcase. Yeah, the cable here isn't modular, but it is quite nice, as we'll see in a minute. I personally would have liked to have had a different set of ear tips. I think that these are maybe a little bit too similar, but honestly, it's a pretty decent accessories package at this price. The cable here is, as you would expect from a brand that mostly does cables, pretty great, honestly. This is a 4-wire sort of copper-colored twist with a 2-wire braid, it's a 4-wire braid with a 2-wire twist after the Y-split, excuse me. It feels really nice in the hands. It doesn't exhibit any microphonics. It lays flat nicely. It wraps well. It behaves really nice. It's what I expect from a company that makes premium cables. The large amp connector here has branding on it. It's this cool, like, square pyramidal square prism sort of twist thing going on. I like it. It's unique. It gives for a good grip. It's very weighty, and it matches the Y-split and the chin slider quite nicely. I've seen this sort of design on other cables of theirs before, so it's nice to recognize the brand. The chin slider is a little bit on the unfunctional side, but if you do put some tension on it, it will grab on rather nicely, so don't need to worry about it too much. The ear hooks are comfortable, as you can see there, and they are color-coded, which I really like to see. You get colored rings there, as well as colored plastic on the connectors there. No, they do not sit flush with the IEMs, but again, the connectors are recessed so that you can take this cable and use it on other IEMs. That's not something that I typically do. I like to keep stock cables with the IEM that they're clearly designed for. Overall, this is a great cable as expected from this brand. I should mention, if you don't like this copper style color, the black version of this IEM does come with a black cable, so that's another option in case you don't like the sort of pinkish bare copper look. The build here on the Tulip is pretty premium, honestly. These are fully CNC'd alloy shells so that they stay light while still being quite durable. You get metal nozzles, metal faceplates. Those nozzles do have a metal mesh filter on the inside to protect from moisture or debris. In terms of ventilation, you've got this single vent here on the front for the front volume where the driver is, and then you've got this vented metal panel on the back providing venting for the back volume. That ventilation is effective, no driver flex, no pressure buildup issues here. Shells are very lightweight, but again, they feel very solid in the hands. I can see these lasting a good long while. These mirrored surfaces might get some patina, nicks, and scratches on them, but honestly, that'll just make them look well loved. Overall, pretty well made. I expect the metal shells to last a good while. So let's go ahead and pull up the specs for the Tulip here. This is powered by a single 10mm gold ring dynamic driver with a polyethylene sort of diaphragm underneath. At least that's how they describe the driver. Speaking of drivability, it's extremely easy. Not only do these not change sound with higher impedance sources or impedance adapters, they're also so easy to drive that basically anything with a headphone jack will be able to power these. Despite those full metal shells, as I mentioned, they're relatively lightweight, coming in at less than 5 grams a side, and the 6mm nozzle diameter is about average in size for IEMs. These are actually quite small. We'll see that in the comfort section. Most of the weight overall for this set is in that premium cable. That doesn't really affect comfort, and overall the specs I would say are sort of standard, typical single DD set, nothing really out of the ordinary. Time for the cool wall, and honestly the Tulip is a pretty interesting design. While the overall shape of the IEM isn't really anything super crazy, the faceplates and the sort of tulip-inspired gold and silver design I think are pretty unique. For me, they're right on the edge of sort of girly and classy. They look sort of modern art-ish, like sort of the kinetic motion art that you see like in public parks or things. Well, I wish they did have a bit more color or like dynamism to them. They do look pretty classy, honestly. I'm going to go ahead and put these in cool. I do wish that the black version that came with the black cable had a different sort of colorway. It's kind of weird that the IEMs are the same, but the cable isn't. I got this version because it matches the shells better. I think overall it's a very interesting looking IEM, and yeah, I just wish the black one matched the black cable better. So let's see how the modern art stylings of the Tulip fare with the Council of Ladies. Starting off as always with Are They Pretty? Interestingly, we have a near unanimous verdict against these being pretty, 4-1 against them, with only lady number 1 finding these pretty at all. Lady number 1, however, is not willing to comment or compliment you on these, giving these a 0 to 5 sweep against comments or compliments. Now, in terms of their comments, overall, not a whole lot of positivity here, which I think is surprising. There are some people who wish that it was a bit more pink, but overall, not a lot of love for the design. I think that the modern art vibes just don't seem to resonate with the ladies, so better luck next time, I guess. Comfort, I think, is one of the strongest things about the Tulip. These extremely small, heart-shaped shells might not be conventional in shape, but they're also so small that it doesn't really matter. There's no wings, there's no bulges, there's no off sort of shape that will interfere with your ears too much. These were definitely in the sort of disappeared into my ears category of size, at least for my enormous ears. I had 0 issues wearing these for long periods of time. Very lightweight, the ear hooks are well designed, no issues whatsoever. My wife also adored the fit on these. She scored these like a glove on the Tiny Ears test. She was able to comfortably wear these for long sessions at a time with what she called an extremely secure seal that no matter what she tried, she could not get to fail. They also didn't feel super heavy or large in her ears. I would say if you have small ears, the Tulip are very, very nice in terms of comfort. But none of that matters unless these sound good, and in terms of bass, the Tulip sounds quite nice. We have a bit of a bass boost going on here. It's a sort of textured, rumbly sub-bass presentation with a punchy and energetic mid-bass that's very dynamic to me. Massive Attack's Angel and that sort of droning, thumpy sub-bass line that it has feels really nice here on the Tulip. I find the overall bass presentation is just very well executed, very nice texture going on here from that driver. In terms of bass guitar and kick drums, they're also quite forward and have nice emphasis to them. The bass line from Carry On My Wayward Son, for example, it stands out to me from the guitar and the drums rather well. The different notes are clear and they stay strong in the mix, maintaining good presence. Overall, the bass is fun, bouncy, engaging. I feel that the driver does a good job maintaining decent control and good texture throughout, despite the boost. Really, really well done, honestly. The mids suffer from the classic V-shaped tuning problem. That means that they're a little bit warmed over and recessed. They're sort of sacrificed in terms of tonality and naturalness to give the whole IEM a more contrasty, excitable sound. Imagine Dragons Warriors sounds pretty good in terms of vocals. The extra warmth from the bass adds to the gravelly, sort of intense presentation of the vocals on this track. But the strings, the horns, the lock-in sound effects, everything in the background gets a little bit lost in the overall presentation. There's a bit of masking going on. The sounds are all still there, and they're still decently separable, but they're clearly not the focus of this tuning. Speaking of not the focus, female vocals aren't either. Even on tracks mastered so that the vocals are sort of front and center, I found the fundamentals a little further back than I would like. Joanna Jones's vocals in Waiting for You, for example, it sounds like she's sort of fighting the instrumentation. She's having to rise above the bass and the percussion, and she's not always winning, at least on the Tulip here. I know on more neutral tuned headphones, she's mastered to be a bit forward of the instrumentation with her vocals, and I didn't find that here. While I didn't find that this sort of mid-range recession outright ruined the presentation for most music, if you like deep V-shaped sets, this will most likely be fine. You'll enjoy the sort of dynamism here, but speaking personally, I would like my mids a bit more filled in than this. As I've said, this is a V-shaped set, so the upper mids and treble are boosted as, sort of suits a V-shaped tuning. The upper mids are quite top-heavy, with most of the energy coming in the later order harmonics for female vocals. Madonna's Material Girl honestly sounds a little bit uneven. Since all the harmonic energy is boosted above the fundamentals in terms of emphasis, it makes her voice sound a little bit nasal, and it makes the S and T sounds in this track quite sibilant. It is a little fatiguing for me, and I'm not even super sensitive to vocal sibilance. That's a lot of energy here. Where this set becomes straight up uncomfortable for me is with the lower and mid treble, honestly. This set has a lot of lower and mid treble energy, and the resulting sharp, aggressively incisive, sibilant tonality that it gives to produced instrument harmonics is very fatiguing. Justice's Genesis is typically a bass test track for me, but here the electronic hi-hats and cymbals really had me needing a break after a single play at moderate volume. They, along with the rest of the high-pitched electronic effects, made this track sound sharp, grainy, and unnecessarily aggressive. The second half of the track with that whistle was really painful at anything above a low to moderate volume. If you're even slightly sensitive to sibilance or treble, I would stay away from this one. It is quite sharp up here. As you would expect from a set with sort of overdone treble, the technical performance is pretty good. The DDL lowdown has enough grunt that it can resolve low-end frequency events with good detail and texture. Bass guitar and deep drums from Gemele no Lilo sound really nice on this set. The vocals have a good weight to them. The ringing of the strings and the deep hits on the larger drums have great thumpiness to them. And I didn't think this set missed out on any of the low-end detail that I typically listen for. The lower treble brilliance sets it up for success with some of the glassware hits in my Waltz for Debbie test, but I really had to concentrate to pick up any of those background conversations that I typically find. It's a very uneven technical performer. It does well at the extremes of the scale, not so much in the middle, where honestly there's a lot of detail going on. Overall, I would put this beneath the Simgot 500LM for total technical performance, but better than the 200 Maze. Stereo separation and 3D soundstage on this set is pretty good. The sort of walking drums in the back of Rasputin has nice width to them. They go from left to right very slowly at the start of the song. It feels nicely resolved. The different string instruments in either ear sound very well separated, and I never get the impression that they're being forced into the very center of the sort of audio image. The V-shape tuning does help a bit with the perceived depth and 3D soundstage. Cream's White Room was generally quite solid in terms of imaging and being able to tell sort of where each instrument and voice was coming from. It wasn't anything that blew my socks off, but compared to sort of other IEMs at this price point, it's roughly in line with what I expect. The Tulip then, it's a very V-shaped sound signature with boosted bass, recessed mids, and a highly energetic and fatiguing lower treble. It's a sound that I think some people will appreciate, but that amount of energy in the upper vocal and instrument harmonics is really going to cause some problems for some listeners. Look at the boxes that I have here on the table. These are what I consider the sort of heavy hitters of the at or around $100 price range, and when you price your single DD set around $100, you had better bring your A game, because all of these are established players. They each have their niches and their sort of talents and their strengths and weaknesses. So let's go ahead and stop beating around the bush and see how the Tulip does against the competition. We'll start with something else that can be fatiguing for some listeners. It's the Simgot EA500LM, priced at $90 US. The LM is also a classic V-shaped tuning. It's got less overall bass energy, but the bass here I find is more controlled. It bleeds into the mids less, and the mids themselves are less recessed, particularly female vocals. They just sound much more natural here than they do on the Tulip. While the LM can be a very energetic set in the lower treble, especially with the silver nozzles with the black O-rings equipped, it is still more palatable to me in that configuration than the Tulip can be. It is brighter overall, but the Tulip has this sort of peaky and graininess that I find is more troublesome more quickly for my ears compared to the 500LM. real winner here is the fact that the 500LM has the calmer but still energetic gold nozzles that you can switch to. That boosts the bass, calms the treble down. Still excitable, but it's a much, much more listenable set to me compared to the Tulip. Yes, the Tulip has a better cable and a nicer carry case, but this is just more versatile and much more listenable, at least to me. Next up, as I make them emerge from the little booties that I keep them in, is the Moondrop Aria 2, priced at $100 US. Aria 2 is a classic case of Moondrop's VSDF tuning, and oh boy, is it a different kettle of fish compared to the Tulip. The bass quality here is still excellent, but it doesn't rumble or hit as hard as the Tulip. The Aria just sounds less V-shaped, more mid-centric. It's cleaner with the mids in general. It's more focused on female vocals. Sounds much more natural than the sort of harmonic first approach that the Tulip takes in terms of the treble. The Aria isn't anywhere near as airy or energetic in the treble, but it's much more natural sounding and it's much more balanced. Yet another set that I find much more listenable compared to the Tulip. And the technical performance, honestly, is not that huge of a gulf between them, especially if you perceive detail in the mids. Go ahead and step up again in price and come to the Dunu Kima 2, priced at $120 US. The Kima 2 is even more mid-centric compared to the Aria 2 and especially the Tulip. It is warmer, smoother, relaxing, just very chill compared to the extremely excitable, rumbly, sort of spicy trebled Tulip here. The tunings on these two are completely different, but I wanted to bring the Kima 2 in because it also has an absolutely fantastic accessories package, and in terms of tuning, it represents the antithesis of the Tulip. So if you just wanted a good accessories pack, a good case, a good cable, the Kima 2 is an option, and if you're tired of the sort of V-shaped tonality that so many sets seem to have, and you just want something warm and musical and more mid-centric, Kima 2 gives you all of that. But what if you liked the Kima 2, but you wanted a little bit more control over your tuning? You wanted to play with the bass or try some EQ? That's where the new $130 Tanchjim Fission comes in. If you ignore the USB C connector, this thing has 12 distinct tunings for you to choose from, combining the nozzles and the bass dial. And on top of that, if we have the DSP connector, it opens up a 5-band PEQ with an app that you can use to customize the sound on this to your liking. You can increase the sub bass to match the Tulip while keeping the mids more filled in. You can drop the treble to make it a bit more palatable. You can do whatever you want here. As far as the stock configuration goes with the analog and the configuration that I have, which is like the default configuration, it's rather like the Kima. It's more mid-centric sound presentation compared to the Tulip. So again, not strictly a match for the Tulip here. If you ignore that sort of lower treble sharpness and bite, the upper mids and treble on the Fission is quite similar to the Tulip in that it's pleasantly airy and detailed. Just, without the fatigue, without the, graininess that this set has. It's just more of an option and it's more palatable. So, if you want a bright-leaning, V-shaped, single DD set with a lot of technical performance and an exciting treble, there's nothing wrong with the Simgot 500LM. It's quite bright, and it's not as bassy or energetic in the lower treble as the Tulip, but it's overall more palatable, and the nozzles give you more versatility for the tuning here. If you still like a V-shape, but you want something more mild with more forward vocals, more filled-in mids, the VSDF tuning on the Aria 2 here is exactly that. I find it to be a much better all-rounder than the Tulip. If you want something even warmer and more mid-centric than that, maybe with better accessories, Kima 2 still a fantastic option with a smooth, relaxing sound signature. If you want to personalize your sound even more than this or this, the Fission is basically a similar-ish Kima with a little more energy at the extremes of the frequency graph and a whole lot more customization options with the dial, the nozzles, and the DSP adapter. The Tulip, with its more unique tuning, is a little bit harder to recommend compared to the sort of the heavy hitters in this price range, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So let's go ahead and pull up the Audio Amigo Arbitrary rating scale and discuss the Tulip. The Tulip honestly gets a lot right. It comes with a good carry case, it has a good cable, it looks nice, it's built very well, it's super comfortable, and for the sort of things that you get and how it's built, it's priced pretty well, honestly. Where it falls down, at least for me, is with the tuning. I don't mind the deep V-shaped tuning. I think that's fine. I don't necessarily prefer it for daily drivability, but I love a good V-shaped set that can make for contrasty, engaging, fun listening sessions. I like a good V-shaped tuning. Where this goes wrong is how it handles the lower treble of that V-shaped tuning. Cymbal and vocal harmonics on this set are sharp, they're very aggressive, they're overly incisive, they're biting, they're fatiguing, and most importantly to me, they sound very unnatural. Combine that with the recessed female vocal fundamentals, and overall the vocals will take on a thinner, more nasal tonal quality, and none of that is helped by the fact that the bass bleeds into the mids as well. Overall, considering how this set is tuned and the competition at this price range, the Tulip is going to get a score of good, as I think that it's well executed for a V-shaped set if you ignore the lower treble. If you're not sensitive there, or if you're willing to sort of have this EQ'd at all times, I could see this working for you, but again, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. So who do I think should actually buy the Tulip here? Well, if you have small ears and are willing to permanently use EQ to fix that lower treble, and you want a great-looking single DD IEM with a great cable and carry case, I think the Tulip is a fine choice. If you just want a V-shaped IEM with very exciting treble, I think the 500LM is the better choice. But if you want something that de-emphasizes female vocals a bit, if female vocals annoy you and you can stand that sort of sibilance at the top end, this could be an option, again, depending on what specific female vocals are in your library and the tonality that they have. Outside of those two very specific groups of people, though, I find myself having a hard time recommending this to a larger swath of people. It's a bit sad. They got literally everything right except the lower treble, and for me at least, that really kills it. If you enjoy that super lower treble forward sound, then by all means, go ahead and grab one of these. But if you're even slightly sensitive or fatigued in that area, I would stay away from this one. And that's going to wrap up my review for the FAAEAL Tulip. A beautiful, well-built set, well-accessorized, just... I can't take that lower treble. It's just too unnatural and too fatiguing for my library and my taste. It just does not work for me. If you love it, I get why. That's a very, very exciting sound. It sort of takes away some of the annoyance in female vocals if you find specific parts annoying, but it's just not for me. Coming up next, stay tuned. I've got the Zigat Crescent coming up to finish off the sort of $250 to $300-ish meta-ish sounding 3 Amigo sets. But for now, that's going to be it. Thank you all so much for watching and for all your continued support. I really hope you enjoyed the video. This has been Omar with Audio Amigo Reviews, and I will catch y'all next time.